Alright, so I've started the routine panel. I got the same comment at the top. And I want you to look at something, if you would, if everybody just look up here for a minute. What I'll do is I'll just keep going through this, okay? And if you've been typing, fine. But some of you can type fairly quickly, some of you cannot. And I'll just put it out there on the system when I get done, all right? But I want you to see this. Notice when we did the Joes that we imported 4 Java packages: awt.star, awt.event.star, text.decimal format, and swing.star. All right. Now, the reason I'm telling you that is notice the one that's missing, hint, hint, the one in blue, is not used over here. Because that one handles button clicks. We're already handling the button click in the other class, so we don't need it in there. So one thing you shouldn't do is don't put in import statements that you don't need. But we are going to still be working GUI, so we need the awt.star, the abstract window toolkit, and we are doing JSwing, so we need that. Then we come in here and we're creating some constants. I made these constants because over time they probably will change. All right, even oil change, 26 bucks, some places you can get it closer to 20, but you get the idea. So those are all the variables that we're going to have. And for each variable that we have, we're going to have a checkbox. And if it's checked, if the oil change checkbox is checked, you want an oil change. If the tire rotation checkbox is checked, you want a tire rotation, etc. All right? So these are our variables with our costs. These are going to be our checkboxes. And then we go in and we have to literally go in and instantiate or create the checkboxes. And that's what I'm doing here. So that's, again, building the GUI. But what we have to do then, after we've built that GUI, all right, is one thing, and like I said, this is at the same time one of the, for lack of better words, more fun lectures to give, but also at the same time it's one of the hardest because now, notice what I'm doing here. I'm going to create another layout, and that's going to be a grid layout manager. And let me put it in here. There's only a few more lines of code in this routine, so. In fact, I'll stop right here. And you might say, okay, whatever. So before we were doing that border layout, now we're doing a grid layout. Why? Because what we want to have happen is we're going to have 7 different checkboxes. All right? But the text that goes along with them is going to be different in size, right? Oil change has got more letters than lube job, which has less letters than radiator flush, etc. So when we come in here and we create a grid layout, we're saying we want 7 rows, 1 column, but with a grid layout, everything is exactly the same size. It's in a grid. And what it is it all takes the size of the biggest thing that you put in there. So even if I've got names, and let's say that, for some reason, you got somebody with a really long first name. All right? And so let's just say, it's Franklin James, but it's just one word. So, 10, 12, 13, whatever that is, letters. Then you got the next person, Ed. What I'm telling you is they're going to take up the same amount of space, whether there's 13 letters or there's 1. They're all going to be the same size. So what we're doing by creating a grid layout like this is we're going to guarantee that the stuff is going to line up and it's going to look uniform in nature. All right? And if you say, well, yeah, but we had that other layout. That was in another class. This is the layout we're having in this class. All right? So we've gone in there, we've created that grid layout manager, and then I want it to look decent, so I'm going to tell it to create a border. Things that you take for granted in packages that we use like Visual Studio, or things that you take for granted like adding a border with CSS. Here, literally, it says set border, and it's border factory. Don't ask me why, but that's what they decided to call it. Dot create titled border, and we're going to call this routine services. Okay? A lot of typing. It looks kind of, but then we got to go and add the check boxes to the panel. All right, the panel that we're just creating right here, that one. All right. So there's going to be 7 of these add statements. Add oil change, add lube job, add radiator flush, add transmission flush, which I just call trans flush, add inspection, add muffler. Unless I spelled that wrong. Still looks goofy with it, but we'll have to look at that. Why did I do it up here? Radiator flush. What's that? Oh, down at the very bottom? Okay. Yeah, oh, there it is. Yep, that was it. You're right. And add tire rotation. That's it for that routine. Now we still got some errors here with the add. They'll get fixed. All right. Now we have to tell it to get the charges. This is the last routine that's in here. Now, hopefully you agree with this, that if I've got 7 check boxes, okay? So I've got a check box for an oil change, 1 for a lube job, 1 for a radiator flush, 1 for a transmission flush, 1 for an inspection, 1 for a muffler, and 1 for a tire rotation. There's a lot of permutations. I can get any 1, any 2, any 3, any 4, any 5, any 6, or all 7, correct? That's a lot of possibilities. Not only that, I have no guarantee that when somebody's checking the stuff off, they're going to do it in order. You agree with that? So this ends up becoming 7 different if statements because we don't know the order in which they're going to do these. All right. And I still want to be in my routine here. So I'm going to say if oil change dot is selected. And you all know what that means. If I can type it. That means if I've clicked that. What do I want to do? I want to add that to my charges. But since I don't know the order in which I'm going to do this, it has to be plus equals oil change charge. And if you say that doesn't make sense, it should make total sense. That means if the checkbox that has the text next to it that says oil change is checked, I want to add $26 to my charges. That's exactly what I want to do right there. And these have got to be ifs, not these have got to be ifs and not if else's, because again, I might have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever of them. So I'm going to just keep doing this. If I did screw up. Boy, there's the first. Okay, that isn't a new routine. So this is going to be in a routine that's called get charges. The get charges method calculates the routine charges. And as you know or can tell, there's a return there because it returns the charges. Again, that is the amount of the routine charges. All right. So if it's that, we want to do this. If it's a lube job, dot is selected, then we want to come in and say charges plus equals lube job charges. And you know this, hopefully you remember this, and whoops, I'm going to do that, I better actually create the routine, right? So public double get charges. That's going to go down at the bottom. Double charges. We can set it equal to 0 if we want to. All right. That's going to fix that. Okay, loop job charges, which I thought I created up here. Oh, I made a charge, not charges. All right. And I'm going to work my way down. So, radiator. Probably help if I do this. So again, all I'm doing is I'm going through here and I'm going to have to make 4 more of these because I've got 7 total checkboxes. And that's what I'm checking in here is if these individual checkboxes have been selected. So a little easier. Yep, I see the thank you. Alright, so that's 4. Alright, and that's it for that one. Okay? Again, we still have some stuff that we've got some errors in here, and hopefully they're going to be fixed when we put in the last one. All right? The last one, thankfully, is the least amount of typing. So I'm going to save again, go back to the non-routine panel, and the only thing that I want to add in here as far as my imports, there's just 2 of them, and that's import java.awt.star and import javax.swing.star. I don't need, like we had in the last one, I'm not going to be doing anything that's going to be formatting any $signs, so that's all I need are these 2. All right. See all those underlines? Yeah, that probably be because I should have said extends JPanel. Let's see after we do that how many of those go away. Well, a couple. All right. But notice all those underlines are now gone. Okay. Except for that one. Public routine panel extends JPanel. No, that's correct. So I'm just going to keep it there. All right. right, so this particular routine right here, remember this one is going to handle what? It's going to handle the non-routine charges. In other words, it's going to handle the parts and the labor. All right? Now what we want to do is we want to come in here and initialize those text fields to 0 in case somebody doesn't put anything in there, because it's expecting numbers. So we're just going to throw literally the literal value zeros in there. And again, you start to see when we go through this how you do it differently than you do it in a language like C# or something where you're using where you've got a lot more things automated for you. We're again using a grid layout here just for uniformity reasons, so it looks nicer, and we'll create a border just like we did before, but since I already have that, I can go and grab that. And this one is non-routine services. All right, well, 5 more lines, and then that's mercifully, that's the end. that's it. It still says that I've got 6 errors, so I'm going to have to try to fix those. Save everything. Let's go back to Joe's here and see what looks funky on here. Now again, for whatever reason, Eclipse has its own spell check. And there's a lot of words it doesn't recognize. So if you want, you can keep adding them to the dictionary, but it's a pain in the butt to do that. It doesn't know Joe, doesn't know non-routine, but if I put a hyphen there, it'll find that. So I can go change all those. I don't really care. All right, but I'm looking through here to see if I mistyped something. Anybody see any red lines in here? Because I don't. So hopefully at least that one's okay, although it's showing red there and I don't know why. Alright, so let's go to the non-routine. There's nothing showing here that I can tell, again, other than some yellow, a little bit of yellow here for the same reason. I don't know why that is, but we'll see if we can figure that out for next class. So I don't see anything wrong on there. Then we've got the routine panel. Alright, and again, I don't see anything that looks wrong on there, so I'm going to go over to Joe's. And it's going to give me some kind of an error, I'm sure, when I try to build this. Alright, proceed with launch. Yeah, cancel. Don't remember if it lets me run all of them at once or not. Unresolved compilation problem. Well, that's a really great error message, isn't it? Method add is not applicable for the arguments routine panel and string. That looked like it was the problem I was having with everything, so it's not impossible that I skipped a line or whatever on here. So let's look. It doesn't like the stuff that's in here, so I want to see if I skipped anything. This is the non-routine panel. What I'll do before the next class is I'll fix this and I'll print this out. And what I'm going to ask is that when you come in here on Thursday, I'm going to keep going back to this program because it's good. And maybe this was fruitless to do this and think we could get all this typed in, but still I'd rather do that and at least have you see the stuff, and hopefully that piqued your curiosity. And there were a few places and they're like, why'd you do this, why'd you do this type of thing. And again, we'll go over that stuff in the next class. All right. Those lines, but for some reason it doesn't like the add method. So I'll have to fix that. Right. I've already got it working, so I'll show you the other one, okay? Let me close all this. So I'll close all, and I thought the code was the same, but this is the other one. So notice that if I bring up Joe's and I go and run it, there it is. Alright, so you can see this right here is our first panel, this is our second panel, and this is basically our third panel. The buttons look different sizes, again, because the buttons in here are predicated based on what you put in there for the button text. Alright, but notice 26 plus 18 is 44, 74, 154, 169, 269, 289. And that's what I get. 289, and if I have 10 hours of labor at $20 an hour, that should be $489 now. And it is. All right? I thought there was taxes in here in the parts. There might not be. Let's say we had $100 in parts. There is no tax. All right? So as I start to pick things off of here, as you'd guess, the cost is going to go down. Notice when I do this, if there's nothing in here and there's nothing in here, and I calculate the charges, I get an error message. All right, it expects there to be a 0 in here and in here. because it's trying to do a mathematical operation and there's nothing there. This is not like JavaScript where you get NaN. Here it just blows up. I did preload them, but the problem is when you start to add and remove stuff, what I could do is I could check it first to see if there was nothing in it, and if there was nothing in it, I can use what's called set text, and I could put a 0 in there like I did when I preloaded it. Yeah, so that's really what I should be doing. All right. So what I'll do is I'll grab, I've got these here, all right, that do work. And like I said, they're set up the same way. That's what I was going off of, was this. Okay. So I will run off, I don't know how many of you are there in the class, about 10 or whatever. So I'll run off 10 copies and I'll have them, all right, I'll give them to you for next class. In fact, I can just go upstairs and do it right now because if you're planning on staying for the next class. So I will go up, I will fix this, go upstairs and make a copy of this for everybody in the class. All right, and that's where we'll pick it up next time.